as mentioned, CSTA standards existed before those Illinois standards. So just because a resource is not out there aligning to Illinois standards, don't fret, because if it's aligned to CSTA, we can match it up. When you look at our Illinois standards, you'll see a grade band first, so it says K2. Then the content domain, so CS, computer systems, those match up to those colored boxes that I showed you. And then we have the number standard, so just 1, 2, 3. That just tells you, if there's more than one in computer systems, this is the third standard. And then we have the words. You'll even notice when you compare them down here, the words are the same. So the CSTA standards and Illinois standards even use the same vocabulary, same words. The only exception is that future and emerging technologies doesn't exist in the CSTA standards. The only thing that's different as far as the standard codes is that grade band. So if you see a CSTA standard, you're not going to see K2 or 3.5. You're going to see 1A or 1B or 2 or 3A or 3B. And it seems complicated, but it's actually really simple. So 1 means elementary. 1A is your early elementary, so K2. 1B is your later elementary, 3.5. Level 2 is middle school, 6.8. It's all by itself. And then level 3 is high school. 3A is something that would be 9 through 12, so it's more introductory. 11 through 12 is 3B, and that's going to be your more complicated or more advanced concepts. So you can take a CSTA standard and you can look at it and you can interpret it into the Illinois standards and vice versa. So if you find a resource and is aligned to one and not the other, that's okay. So here is our next, action item. What are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? How are we going to bring this in? How are we going to align a curriculum or create a curriculum that's going to be a pathway for our students to be successful, so that we know that they are getting that foundation of computer science that will help them be successful, both when they get to high school and they can take those courses at the high school level, but they can also make that informed decision as a person going into the workforce. So number one, our first approach, make it make sense. As anything, you can't work with something that you don't understand. So we spent a lot of time kind of breaking down those standards. Hopefully this resource is something that you can come back to and you can reference. I'm also going to show you that K12 framework, because it also provides some wonderful clarification on some of the ideas that maybe you are not as comfortable with. Know your strengths. What are you already doing? Okay, and I'm going to show you Eric's resource that he created, which is an alignment resource, or a computer science worksheet where you can look at your standards and say, okay, I'm doing that in social studies. I'm doing this in reading. Oh, we talk about patterns in science. And then look for things that you could incorporate a little more computer science in, or maybe it's just adding the computer science vocabulary. Okay, we talk about this, but I'm gonna introduce that term abstraction, because that's what the students are doing. Let's call it what it is. And now we've really helped them understand how it applies to computer science as well as math or English. Okay, so look for projects that you're already doing some of these skills in, and then see if you can expand them, or you can add a few more skills in. Remember, you can stack a lot of these contents, or a lot of these standards, they go together. Also, look for places where maybe you could more easily integrate. So don't force it. Try to find places where maybe you're like, that works right there. Let's put that here, right? Don't force it in if it doesn't fit, because then you're not going to feel comfortable and the students aren't going to see that connection to it. Find places in lessons where the standards can be integrated easily. And then ask yourself, okay, what's left? What do I not have a spot for yet? I'm doing all these things, but I need to find a place for this, right? Find that gap and then find a resource to address it, right? Find the resources that can plug in your gaps to help you address the rest of the standards that you're not already addressing, okay? How do we unpack these standards? Because, right, number one is making sure that we understand what the standard is saying. The Illinois standards are lovely, and remember how I explained that they are, in fact, the same words as the CSTA standards, just that grade band is different. I like to look at the CSTA standards because they actually also provide a little bit of a reference for what the standard means. So when you are looking at standards, you can read the Illinois standards, but if there's something sticking out like that you're just not sure what it means, you can also go to the CSTA website and look at the CSTA standards. And when you look at them, you're going to be able to click on it. So when you see the standard, that's right there. That's kind of what you get with Illinois. You're like, okay, that standard makes sense. Select and operate appropriate software to perform a variety of tasks and recognize that users have different needs and preferences for technology use. Okay, that seems pretty straightforward, but you know what? I need a little more clarification. If you click the little drop down, you can actually get some examples of what that might look like, okay? And even like as we said earlier, that grade band is not there. The CSTA standards will have it right here. So you don't have to remember what 1A means. It's also in the CSTA standards right here. So let's look. It says, oh, people use computing devices to perform a variety of tasks accurately and quickly. It's going to break it down. It's going to tell people, it's going to give you some examples of how this looks in the real world. So with teacher guidance, students should compare and discuss preferences for software and their primary functionality. What do you like to use? Like you can have a conversation about on your device, what do you like to do? Which tool do you like to use? It could be as simple as different kinds of games, but it also could be like, hey, we need to, we need to type this up. Which would you rather use, Notes or Google Docs? You can do this with any of these standards. You can expand and you can find out a little bit more, right? What are the appropriate components of a computing system that K2 should know? It lists them out: desktops, laptop computers, a tablet. So knowing the difference between a Chromebook and a tablet, or your mom's phone and your Chromebook at school, the keyboard of the computer, a mouse, printer. It's going to give you some specific examples of what they're talking about, and it's going to help you figure out what is age appropriate here. So the CSTA standards are awesome for that. Illinois does not have that expanded section where it will kind of give you a little more information. However, you can also find that extended information in the K12 framework, okay? The framework also will let you kind of dig in, and it will give you some more information, which is pretty great. So if we want to go to by the end of second grade, oops, I want to unselect all. Into second grade, and let's look at computing systems. Okay, so for devices, what do we need to know by the end of computer science or end of the grade 2 for computing systems? We need to know things like, what can devices do? Like, what can we use a device for? What can we, why do we need to use them? Sometimes when we don't give the computers the exact instructions that we want, it doesn't work, right? These frameworks, again, will break it down for us. It will help us understand what we expect our students to know. It'll put it into terms and into context for that each grade level. If you go, I promised you that Eric had made this amazing resource to help navigate all these things together. Obviously, you guys are very familiar with the Common Core standards, so look for overlaps there. As you read the computer science standards and maybe look at the expanded version or the framework and you say, hey, that sounds familiar. I think that actually is part of what we are doing when we do this, like step-by-step directions. Oh, we do a how-to paper. Hey, we can put these things together, right? How can we integrate? How can we call out when we're doing a computer science skill when we're also doing another content area skill? But Eric did this amazing tool, made this amazing tool. We have this integrated view, okay? So he took all of these standards, and this was kind of inspired, the CSTA had something similar. And you can see, instead of having all of K2 and then having all of K3, you can use this view to be able to see, okay, what am I gonna do? But then how does that look different from what 3.5 is gonna do? And then how does that look different from 3.8? He also made a Google Sheets version, which is then able for you, and there's a better link, an easier link coming up in the presentation, where you can actually start to record some things like, okay, we do this with this unit, with this activity, with this book, or with this lesson. And you can start to actually call out how you're accomplishing some of these things so that you can feel confident that you're doing the things that you need to, that you're helping your kids develop the skills related to these standards. So that integrated view is amazing, and I will make sure to call out the interactive one that's later in this presentation.